Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is Sir Michael Fallon, who is the British Defence Secretary. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Pleasure.
You've attended a meeting on the situation in Iraq, a meeting of defense ministers in Paris. Obviously, the main question is, how well is the offensive on Mosul going?
Well, this was a chance for the main coalition members to review progress of the offensive, and it is well underway now. And a lot of towns and villages have been liberated, south and east of Mosul. And the operation to eventually encircle and isolate Mosul is now moving reasonably well, and we're playing a part in that.
Right. Obviously, when do you think the town will be encircled?
Well, we've not put a specific date on that, but the operation, and I was in Iraq, I think 4 weeks ago, and Secretary Carter was there last week. The operation began on the date that the Iraqis told us it would begin. So there is, and I detected in Baghdad certainly, a real confidence now amongst the Iraqi military that this is a doable operation. They've seen towns like Fallujah and Ramadi and Hit fall to them on the Euphrates River Valley. And certainly they seem very confident now that they can get Mosul encircled and eventually liberated. But I've not seen anybody put a date on the end of the operation.
Well, there is also talk about the offensive, the forthcoming offensive on Raqqa, the capital of ISIL in Syria, as it's called. The US Defense Secretary Ashton Carter said there would be, quote unquote, an overlap with what's taking place in Mosul. So it seems we're very close to an offensive on Raqqa as well.
Yes, these operations don't have to be kept separate. They're being conducted by different local troops, the Iraqi and Kurdish forces over in Iraq, and we hope by the Syrian Democratic Force in Syria. And obviously Raqqa and Mosul are the key strongholds of the caliphate, and it will, I think, in the end help to degrade the caliphate if both these cities can be isolated and encircled, then there's no more movement of fighters or resources between them. And people in Syria too can look forward to the departure of Daesh.
So does that mean that the Raqqa offensive is now really very close?
Well, it's being planned. The Syrian Democratic Forces that have been assembled to eventually begin the encirclement of Raqqa, of course, have been occupied in liberating Manbij and other towns further north. But I hope there will soon be sufficient troops for that force to move southeast and to start operations in and around Raqqa.
Right. Things are already complicated, obviously, in the region, but there's a new complication, an added complication, the tensions between Turkey and Iraq. Turkey has troops inside Iraq for over a year. The Iraqi government has complained, but has complained more and more vocally recently, and there have been threats by both sides. Do you fear there could be a confrontation between Iraq and Turkey because of their willingness to be present in the Mosul area?
Well, I hope not. I mean, Turkey, of course, has the right to protect its own border. And
to be in Iraq?
Well, the border is being sealed now between Turkey and Syria in particular. And Turkey is worried for a long time, of course, about Kurdish extremism inside its own country. So Turkey, too, has an interest in getting this terrorism defeated in both countries. And I hope Turkey will see that this is an operation that is designed to do that. But I'm not going to get drawn on the disposition of the troops that Turkey has there at the moment.
But are you concerned? Do you think they should maybe
Iraq has made its position very clear about those Turkish forces. Well, Iraq has made its position clear, and I'm not going to get involved in that particular dispute.
Right. The forces supposed to take Raqqa would also include some Syrian Kurdish forces. Obviously, Turkey is calling them terrorists. Should they participate in the liberation of Raqqa?
Well, Raqqa is an Arab city. That's the first thing I think we have to understand. And it has to be liberated by a force that is essentially Arab, that has a substantial Arab element to it. Otherwise, the liberation is not going to be welcomed by the people of Raqqa. So it's very important that that force is sufficiently strong, but is also sufficiently Arab.
Is it the case right now? Is there a sufficiently strong element? Because
Well,
many commentators are concerned that that's actually not the case.
Well, that is the force that is being assembled there. And, we're clear, all the experience from Iraq and Syria tells us that these operations are best conducted by local troops that can win the confidence of the local population, that there will be security the day after these cities are liberated. And that is best done, as I said, by a significantly Arab force.
I want to get to the situation in Syria and especially in Aleppo. Are you concerned that the regime, its backers, Russia, Iran, are playing for time, that they actually do not want a political solution but want a military one, and that's what they're actually doing?
That's exactly what they're doing, and I've been concerned about that all year. They have been using these very artificial cessations of hostilities, I think, to reinforce their positions. And you've seen exactly what's happened with each successive cessation. It's been in the end broken, or indeed Russia or the regime have taken advantage of the cessation to actually further punish people who are opposing the regime. So yes, it's a very real concern now. And a city like Aleppo has been under pressure now for months, with huge humanitarian suffering as a result.
So, if what you're saying is true, why continue to negotiate with those people who seem to negotiate in bad faith?
Well, we've continued to work for a political settlement in Syria amongst all those forces who are prepared to live with a democratic outcome and be part of a pluralist solution for Syria that would encompass all the main groups inside Syria. And we will work with anybody towards that end. But it's increasingly clear now that Russia is not prepared to use its huge influence over Assad to bring that settlement about. It's within Russia's power to do that, and they're not doing that. Instead, they're helping to bomb the regime's opponent, and that's appalling.
Right, but it's within the West's power to decide not to talk to Russia because, as you're saying, Russia is not really negotiating.
Well, Russia has huge influence over Syria.
But they're not using it.
Well, we keep trying to get them to use it constructively. But yes, you're right. I begin to despair whether Russia really wants any kind of settlement at all, other than to see, 3/4 of Syria physically destroyed.
Do you think that there is a risk? Obviously, people are wondering where the members of Daesh will go next, Raqqa or something, but could there be a shift to other areas? Some are talking about Libya. Are you concerned by that they may be smarter than we think and go to places we don't expect them to?
Well, Daesh are dangerous anyway. Even before we helped join the government of Iraq to help push them out of Iraq, they were already threatening the West. And we've seen attacks here in Paris, we've seen them across Western Europe. So they're already dangerous, and we've seen offshoots spring up, like offshoots of Al-Qaeda. We've seen these offshoots now, Boko Haram down in Nigeria. We've seen them insert in Libya. So that's that is wholly possible, but it was possible anyway. It's not something that is necessarily driven by the progress that's being made in the campaign. Those offshoots were there anyway, and we have to keep dealing with them.
Right. I want to get to the issue of the Brexit. Obviously, it's a huge matter of debate in your country, in this country as well. No one really understands if it's going to be a hard Brexit, a soft Brexit, a full Brexit. You were for the Remain during the campaign. How do you see this playing out?
Well, it's not a debate. We are leaving the European Union, and I need to be clear about that. It's not the result I wanted, but we have to accept the result of the referendum, and we have to make a success of that result. And we will be leaving the Union. We'll be leaving the Union legally, constitutionally, politically, any way you like to describe it. We will no longer be members of the European Union. Now, of course,
when and how?
Well, that is for negotiation, and the treaty prescribes how that should be done. But although we are leaving the Union, of course, we are still part of the European continent. Around 40% of our trade is with the European continent, and we will want, as Europe will want, the maximum possible free trade in goods and services with the remaining 27 members of the European Union. So that is part of the negotiation. We want to see the maximum trade, but we also, of course, outside the Union, want to regain control over our borders. And those two things have to be negotiated together.
But there is no single market anymore for Great Britain after the Brexit.
Well, there is no European Union anymore after Brexit, I think is a better way of putting it. We will still be trading with Europe. It's a huge part of our trade in both goods and services. And we want the maximum possible free trade. But we will be doing that outside the European Union.
Do you think the Europeans are willing to give you what you want? Or are you concerned that there is a lot of tension, a lot of anger towards the Brexit referendum results?
Well, I understand the concern. Of course, it's a disruption for the rest of the European Union, and we hope to minimise that disruption. And there are a lot of other areas where we will continue to cooperate, for example, in defence and security, in the fight against terrorism, and in terms of security, where we are deploying next year more troops to Europe to help secure NATO's eastern border against any aggression. So we'll still be playing our part in Europe, but we'll be doing it from outside the Union itself.
Okay, Sir Michael Fallon, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for watching it. Stay tuned for more news here on France 24.